Hey everyone, it's time to talk about Vietnam with my friend Moon. If you haven't been visiting myhomeisspecial.com to see the people you're listening to, I highly recommend you check the post for this episode. I'll include a gallery of Moon so that you can see her as a dancer and as a model. Every time we've gone out, she comes with a totally different look, and that's part of what makes it so much fun to work with her. Vietnam is our longest stop in Asia, and I'm excited to go visit. Enjoy the episode. I'm excited to do this conversation with someone I've known for a while, but have gotten to know a lot better in recent years. She's super cool, multi-talented, and someone I consider a friend. Moon, welcome to My Home is Special.
Yay! Hi, I'm Moon.
Moon, why don't we start with a quick introduction of yourself for the people listening?
Sure. Okay, so my name is Moon. It's not my real name, but I go by Moon. I'm from Vietnam, Hanoi, capital city. I am first and foremost an immigrant, first generation immigrant, and I am an artist. I also dance, I make art. Honestly, I just do everything.
And Moon, when did you come to the U.S.?
I moved to the US in 2013. I moved to the US to go to college, actually. I first moved to Seattle, Washington. And then after that, I moved to Missouri to go to a university. And then I moved to Kansas City, which is still in the Missouri area. And then I went to Chicago.
And Moon, did you come here with family or friends, or did you fly solo to Washington and sort of find your own way?
Well, when I flew to Washington, I had a friend that I just made very recent at the moment to go with me because she was staying at the same host family with me. But I came here by myself without any family member or anything as a student. So, yeah, that was kind of like an interesting experience.
I met you several years ago, and as best you can remember, do you know where or how we met?
Yeah, funnily enough, I think we met before my earliest memory of what I have of meeting you. But the earliest memory I have of meeting you was that we were at an event called Woman Manifesting, and then you came over, you introduced yourself. You was like, "Let's work," and I was like, "Sure, let's work." And you did an amazing job at the picture and the edit that you have for me. And then I was like, "Oh, wow, he was really working. All right." And then we just been working with each other since then.
Yeah, and I actually went back to look, and there's a couple of times that I saw pictures of you when I didn't know who you were. I think the first time was in 2019 in an outdoor battle, and I don't think you were crumping at that battle, but you were dancing in the battle. And I had the photos, and then I do remember meeting you at Womanifesting as well in 2020, which was literally the weekend before the world shut down. You had so much energy. I remember a couple of artists had stopped to talk with the crowd, and you treated it like they were talking just to you and had a back and forth with every artist that performed. And then later that year, I saw you at a meetup with Katana and you were modeling. And I was like, wait, does she dance? Is she an artist? Does she model? And the answer was yes. And
Yeah.
after seeing you at a lot of battles and meetups, we've actually gone out and taken pictures a few times. And now I know you as a dancer, as an artist, and as a model. And we honestly work well together. So I'll take it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Moon, I wanted to get the discussion going about Vietnam. This will be my first trip to Vietnam, and in the 6 weeks we'll be in Asia, we're probably going to spend 2 full weeks there. So it'll be our longest stop. And one of the things that we talked about when we were preparing for this was Tet. And I wasn't sure what exactly it was, but when you started talking about it, you were actually pretty shocked that you hadn't discussed it with me the first couple times we talked about Vietnam. So can you share a little bit about what that is and why it's special?
Yes, I was shocked because Tet holiday is such a huge thing in Vietnam. It is our Lunar Year holiday, and like it's the biggest holiday of the year. People take off school and work probably for like 7 or even up to 10 day top. You don't work on those days. You don't go to school. You don't care about those things on those days. It's the day that you go home and you see your family. You spend all your time with your loved ones, and now that time's a little bit different now, and I haven't been home for a while for that, so it may be a little bit different now, but from my memory is that you just don't go to work or go to school during Tet. Like, that's actually frowned upon because we view that as like, why would you put anything else above your family? And then the whole country just does it. So You wear your best clothes, your new clothes, you have all the festivities, you have like, like the dragon dance, you have all these food, like the most extravagant foods that you can offer. You have all these candies and dried fruits that you're offering to the guests that come to your house. To be honest with you, like when I came to America, Tet holiday is depend on the lunar calendar, so it's different every year. And it was really strange not celebrating that. It felt like a very, very huge part of me that just like it felt empty, almost like imagine for American that would be like going somewhere and then like not celebrating Thanksgiving, not celebrating Christmas at all.
And Moon, is that something that you go back home for to experience, or when was the last time you were home celebrating it with family?
Oh, but it's honestly, I have not been able to come home for Tet holiday since, like I said, it's like it happens in such a strange time. Sometimes it's like the end of February, sometimes it's like early February, but usually around February or March or like late January. And I can't really take school or work off for like that holiday. So honestly, it has been a decade since the last time I get to celebrate it. But this upcoming year, I'm going home for it.
Now, when you go home, you mentioned the clothes and the food and the snacks and the candies. How many guests come over for this thing? Is it like the whole town? Is it just family or close friends?
Oh, so basically it's called Chuk Tết, which means you just, celebrate Tet by the first 3 days. So the first 3 days would be dedicated for family. You don't really go outside in the first 3 days. If
Okay.
you do, that's to go to a relatives. But then the fourth and the fifth days, that's when you go to guest house. You basically just come to say hi, wish them a good New Year's, give the childrens their lucky money, and sometimes it can be very crowded, but then sometimes it could just be like one family coming at a time, but you always be expecting people on the fourth and the fifth day of Lunar New Year.
And when you go to people's homes, are they hosting? Is it one of those things where you're expected to bring a dish or a gift or something like that? What's the expectation when you're getting together with family?
Well, normally it depends really. Like if you have a celebration, then you have all these food out. But generally, you have, like candies and dried fruits and snacks already out on the coffee table to offer to guests and, the children's that they bring with. And then usually, if there's children around, then the children would get the lucky money. That was like my favorite part of Tet Holiday was getting the lucky money because it's free money from adults. But now that I'm an adult, I have to worry about giving little children lucky money.
What about the snacks and the candies? Because one thing I do know from knowing you for a little while is you're not shy about food and about snacks and things like that.
Yes, I love the food and the snacks for Tet Holiday. It's literally like the best that you can give, like the most extravagant dishes, like people come over to greet you and celebrate the New Year's with you. So you want to offer the best that you can to your guests, which is really crazy to me because I say the best that you can offer because it's different for everybody, like some family, like they can buy really extravagant like dishes. Like I've seen somebody who had like shark fin out as like dried shark fin as like an offering to the people that come to visit them. But then when it comes to like people who are a little bit poorer or just not as financially well off, they still do their best to, like offer what they can. I remember when I came back to when I was still in Vietnam, actually, and I went back to the countryside to visit a family member, and they treated me to these cactus shaped cookies, right? They look like little cactuses. I think it's called the bone cookies or something like that.
Hmm.
And I love those cookies. Oh my God, they were so great. You already know, I'm not shy about food. I made sure I get my fill of those bone cookies. And then later on, I didn't think too much about it. I was just like, those are some really nice cookies.
Right.
And then I went home and I overheard a conversation between my aunties. And the aunties, they always be gossiping, but they were talking about the visit and they were like, hey, like, like that family wasn't doing too well off right now. I mean, all they have to offer for Tet holiday is the bone cookies. And that's when I came to talk to them, and I found out that the bone cookies is like the cheapest kind of cookies that you can get. Like it's just the cheapest type of food that you can offer, but they don't really have money like that. So that's the best that they can offer for Tet holiday. But not once was I even think of it that way, like not once I look at it and be like, oh, this is all you can offer. Like all I felt at that moment was like, yo, these cookies were really, really good. And they are offering like one of the best food that I have had visiting multiple family, having the fanciest food. And I think that was really special for me. It warmed my heart to know that even though they don't have a lot, they still put out some snacks. They still find something and offer to their guests something for New Year's Eve because, like even though there's not a lot, they still offer something. They still make it work. And I think that's the essence. To be honest with you, that's the essence of Vietnamese food a lot.
So, Moon, let's pick up the thread where we left off and talk a little bit about food. And let me say a few things up front. Almost every guest from around the world I've talked to so far has said the food in their country is what makes it special. And no matter where they live, no matter what access to food they have in the city that they're in, there's nothing like home. And the second thing, which I pointed out earlier, is that I've known you for a while and I know Vietnamese food is special to you. So let's talk a little bit about that connection to home that you have through Vietnamese food.
To be honest with you, like the other day I read a social media post and it said that's like one of my favorite Vietnamese dish, which is this certain fried rice that you made with beef and pickled radish. It was actually like a really, really cheap food for people, for like office worker, like salary men that can get a quick lunch. And it's funny because I keep thinking about it, like the bone cookies, the fried rice, all these time whenever I enjoy like a Vietnamese dish, I realize somehow there's like connection to poverty in that. Every time that I enjoy a dish is always ending up to become like a dish that is like it's cheap and it's easy to make and it's not fancy, but it's so good.
And was that part of the experience that you knew about when you were growing up before you came to the US, or do you just realize that now that you look back and maybe talk to family like your mom or your aunties?
Honestly, it's something that's like I grew up and I just randomly enjoyed. Like for example, right? My auntie made these meatballs for me, and I was like, man, those are the best. Like I've never had them before. They were meatballs, but they were also refreshing. I don't know how they made it until they told me that the meatballs were actually mixed with like uh the root from the banana trees because they wanted to like stretch as much meat out as possible because back then they were poor, there wasn't a lot of meat, so they kind of just ground up the meat and mixed it with the banana tree's root so they can make meatballs that taste like meat but it's actually mostly banana roots. I didn't know about it being like a dish for the poor either. Even with my mom's cooking, like she always made very simple and quick to make dishes because she was busy with work, but she always made sure that we had like a simple but balanced meal. And I mentioned earlier that's the essence of Vietnamese cooking. We never had much, we never had a lot, but we make the best out of what we can offer.
Yeah, and some of the dishes you were describing remind me of a lot of Southern black cooking, where it was a similar sort of, they got the leftovers and they had to make the best they could with it.
Yes, that's pho. That's actually pho. So not a lot of people know about this, or maybe they do. I'm just assuming. But I used to live on this street, and it was named after an author. And it turns out this author was like a huge fan of pho, and he wrote a lot about pho. Now everybody knows pho. Like every American knows about pho. It's the most popular dish in Vietnam. I feel like not a lot of people discussed about the history of it, and pho was like a derived derivative from the word pho in like French, which means soup. Because when the French colonized Vietnam, right, all the beef and pork meat were given to like the general, the soldier, like the French colonizer, and then all the discarded excess bones and then the innards and things that are not meat, basically like things that like the Europeans back then wouldn't eat, they discarded it to the farmers and the Vietnamese people. And what they would do is that they would take those bones and boil it and first roast it with seasoning, and then they boil it for a very, very long time to pretty much just get the essence of the bone juice out and create the pho soup. And then that's when they add the noodle and then that's when they add meat. So the beef pho was the OG because beef bone was able to be boiled for a very long time. So that's the OG of all pho is the beef pho. Then they start making like chicken pho and like just other derivatives, just like other varieties of it. But pho, the most well loved and the ramen of Vietnam, I would say, it's actually another poor person dish, and I feel like not a lot of people know about that.
And Moon, the way you just described it, I can imagine that when you're home and someone's cooking it, you know, and it feels different and it hits different when you're home.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. It's not just, I think with food too, not just the food and how you taste it, but it's also the experience that comes with it, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that, and I look forward to tasting some of it when I'm at your home.
I'll definitely give you a few recommendations for a few spots.
Moon, as I've gotten to know you better over the last couple of years, I've come to realize that you're creative in many disciplines: graphic art, dance, modeling, videography, and I want to chat about that for a little bit. Where did your passion for art begin?
Yeah, so art has been with me for as long as I could even remember being alive, I feel like. I started doing art since I was really, really young. I remembered I was at my cousin's home and, like somebody, they came home with some handmade stickers. So somebody drew and then colored these girls, and they were like Japanese manga style girls. And it just looked really, really pretty. And I saw that and I was just like, you know what? That's look great. I want to be able how to do that. And that's I just start picking up the pen and I just start drawing and drawing, and that's just been my thing since ever since then.
And were you at an art school, or were you doing this in school, or was the special place sort of in your own universe while you were painting and drawing?
Well, I sort of take some art classes when I was in college for my major, but when I was younger, my mom did try to send me to an art class, but then it's kind of like the art teacher was telling her about how he's a little bit worried about me because it would be like recess and everybody would be taking a break, and I was still at my table working on my art. And the teacher told my mom that, like, I don't think she really need to take this class because she just be doing whatever she want, and then just I just give her a prompt and then she would just sit there quietly for like hours. Like she never asked for instruction. So I don't think she needs this class. Art has always been like that for me. It has just been me and just my pen and my sketchbook, and I just explore every possibility.
One spot that you mentioned back home that was really special to you because of the relationships you formed and the amount of time that it sounds like you used to spend there. Can you talk a little bit about the Peace and Love House?
Yes, the Peace and Love House. Yeah, just like, backgrounds for people who are listening to this episode. Even though I sound like a very outgoing, extroverted person, I'm actually terrible at striking up a conversation, making friends. So when I went back to Vietnam after years moving away, like I didn't really have any friends left there. And I have a very few amount of friends there, like probably I would say probably less than 5 people. Everybody else are acquaintances now because I haven't talked to them in so long. So my friend brought me to this place called Peace and Love House when I was around like 20, 21 years old. Dude, I love the place. It was so dope. It was a building, right? And it was like kind of like tucked in a corner. But once you find it, it's like every floor is something different. Like the first floor is like a ramen shop. There's like clothing store in different floors. And then there's like a coffee shop. And then my last favorite place, which is called 33, it's kind of like a bar slash lounge that is like hidden upstairs. Like you just go upstairs and you just see like a door that is always closed with like this tiny, tiny bit of LED light leaking out from the underneath of the door, and a sign, and all it said is 33. I love that place. It's kind of like a lounge and a coffee shop also. There's only one employee there, which is also the owner. And the owner there make drinks and he's very kind. He spent his whole day there. People just come in, chat with him, and then just like drinks whatever. Like if they want coffee, he'll make coffee. If you want lemonade, he'll make lemonade. If you want like a margarita, he'll make you a margarita. He's amazing. I love that place. You definitely need to go there when you visit Vietnam.
Now, you had told me that not only was the place special for you to go and in a more intimate setting, I guess, make friends and enjoy some quiet time, but you also had extended that to your sister and other friends in your circle, right?
Oh yes. When I came back home, my first time finding out about that place, my sister also connected with me through telling me about like her first ever heartbreak. Sorry, sis. I know you don't want your business out there. But long story short, she got her first heartbreak. And I feel like it's traditional for siblings to make sure their siblings are good, especially when they go through their first heartbreak. So other sister, they'd be like, "Oh my God, let's go shopping, let's go eat." But I feel like for my sister, when you go I remember it myself, like even when I go through heartbreaks, the best thing to do is to feel love and appreciate it and like make some new connection. So of course I drag her to Peace and Love House. I took her to 33. She vibed out with the owner, and now he's a really good friend of her too.
So let me ask you, I think you're going home pretty soon after we tape this. Is this one of the spots that you're going to visit and that I have to visit when I'm there?
Absolutely. I Peace and Love House has become a location, especially the 33 Lounge. It has become a location that I go to every time I come back. Like I just have to be there. And I forgot to mention earlier too, like there's creatives everywhere in that building. Like the owner, he used to be in America and he's actually a dancer too. Like his clothing store actually rep the 818, and like his wife and like also other people in the buildings are a bunch of artists, graffiti artists, MC, DJs, dancers, just people from the hip hop culture also.
So, Moon, one of the things I know you mentioned that was special to you about home was the coffee shops. You mentioned Peace and Love House has one. But as I was preparing for this episode, I remembered a conversation I had with someone in the Argentina episode, and she talked about this coffee shop culture where people would just go and people watch, and in her case, read a newspaper and just sit there for a morning. And that's how she started her weekend. What is similar? What is different? What is special about the coffee shops back home for you?
Yeah, so right after Brazil, Vietnam is like the second biggest export of coffee. We are known for our coffee being super strong. It's a staple in our culture. There would literally be like coffee shops everywhere. You would think you go into a residential areas and there's nothing but like homes around you at this point, and there would still be coffee shops. They just be everywhere. I think my favorite experience when it comes to coffee shops, I would say, are like the one in the residential areas, because all the houses are next to each other with tiny alleyways. So it's not like something you can just walk past by. These experiences are like places that you stumbles on. You have to go look for them. It's not one of those things that you just pass by regularly and just know it's there.
Right.
And then when you bump into one of these shops, often you will find one of the best ones. My favorite ones are always in the residential areas. The coffee and the drinks are always great. They are cheap. And then you get to just sit down, relax, not really think about anything. You're not looking out on the street and everything is busy. You just enjoying the moment that is condensed right there at that moment for you.
And when you think about those spots, is it that you hear the hustle and bustle of the city? Do you hear birds? What are the smells like? What is the sensory experience like when you're at this place? Because it sounds like you can pause and reflect, but what's the environment like as you're doing that?
Usually they're off the main road, so you're not going to be able to hear the street. You're not going to be able to hear the people. And I like to think of it every time I think of visiting one of these coffee shops. I visualize it the same way Vietnamese coffee it. Our coffee is it's like condensed in this coffee filter thing, and then you have it with condensed milk. So the way that coffee is made in Vietnam, like is a lot of patience. You have this coffee filter thing on top of a cup, and you just see this coffee just dripping into the condensed milk in the cup. So it's not fast like Starbucks, where you can get to drink in like 5 minutes. It's like you're sitting there watching the coffee dripped into your cup, and then you're enjoying that moment where whether it is going to be very condensed of an environment. It's probably going to be the sound of people in the back trying to make the drinks. It may be another conversation from a different table. It's probably the music that is playing in the background, but that's probably going to be the sounds that you hear there. It's just very, very focused. You can hear every small thing. It's almost like ASMR, I would feel like.
Now, Moon, as we start to wrap up, I did want to close with a question for you. What is the one thing that you would say you miss most about home? And I ask you this knowing that you're probably eagerly anticipating your flight in a couple of weeks.
Oh man, honestly, the one thing that I would anticipate the most definitely has to be my street food experience. I cannot wait for all the food, all the street food, and my mom's cooking too. I haven't had her cooking since the last time I've been there, so it's been a year since then. I'm so excited.
And on that note, Moon, I want to thank you for taking time out of a busy schedule for this. Like I said at the top, you and I have gotten out a couple of times over the course of the last 12 months, and I had to ask for one more favor of you to do this podcast episode with me, and I am truly grateful. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate this conversation too. Like this really take me back. It made me feel like 10 times more excited for my trip now that I vocalized everything that I missed. Now I know what my checklist would look like when I go back to Vietnam.
Thanks for listening to this episode of My Home is Special. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you get future episodes automatically. Go to myhomeisspecial.com for the occasional email update too. That's where links to photo galleries and a few other surprises will live. Be sure to follow KBev Photo on Instagram for behind-the-scenes footage during our journey, and it'll be in the stories. If you just want the photos, go to kbevphoto.com. There's a lot else on there to explore. For now, this is Keith, aka KBev, signing off. Peace.